Good morning or good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Xena World Show. I'm Cristina Deptula, and I'm going to be doing an interview with rather prolific writer who has a wonderful imagination, Supriya Panikar. And she has also written about history and written for teenagers as well as adults, as well as rather a dramatic series of novels. So we're here to be able to learn more about her. So thank you for joining and welcome to this conversation. And Supriya, wonderful to meet you.
Same here, Christina. Thank you. Looking
Mhm.
forward. Yeah.
Yes, looking forward to this. So one thing that really jumps out at me about you and about your writing is just the number of different types of projects and different types of audiences that you have. Different age groups, different sorts of people reading different books. And so, in your writing as well as your screenplay. So I would just like to know if you would say if there is a common thread that runs through your writing, just any kind of characters or themes that tend to recur.
Yeah. The common thread is my characters tend to get dark,
Hmm.
and there is mm, uh, a lot of uh, thrill or what do you say, like an excitement, kind of a dark kind of a thing happening in my stories. Like I try to write a very simple story, but then it ends up with lots of twists and turns. So that's the common thread. And I feel that crime and thrillers are my genres that I like the most.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what attracted you to that genre? Were you inspired by actual cases or was it just kind of more an exploration of psychology in general?
No, the thing is that my father was also a writer, and
Hmm.
like in his times he would do plays and he would write plays and all that, and back in the 80s, growing up, we had a lot of this electricity going. There used to be like a major electricity crisis like happening. Maybe 1 or 2 hours there would be no electricity and we would be in the dark with candles and everything, and my dad would gather all of us, all the kids in the house, and he would narrate stories to us. So I think that created an atmosphere, maybe for me, maybe in my mind, because he would generally veer to this horror stories or something that he had experienced before. So I always had that knack then, and an interest towards reading a lot of detective novels, and in school also. And I think I grew up on these novels, on these crime stories. So that's how it just stuck with me. Like always I felt like I should look for something more. Like there is something more. Like there's beyond this. What is it? You know.
Oh, so it was a childhood interest for you. That's certainly a
Yes,
very beautiful story. So why do you think people in general are attracted to that genre? You think it's solving puzzles, or do you think it's a quest for justice in the world or something else?
I think it's the quest for the unknown, maybe.
Hmm.
That is what I feel like. Why people write horror? We always want to know what's on that side, what's on the other side, or we always want to know what is happening. Like what we can't see, we want to see.
Yes, and certainly there's so much in straight up science today that would have been science fiction just 50 years ago.
Yes.
You think about the role of the imagination in creating technology. So how do you keep so speaking of imagination, how do you come up with so many new ideas for so many different types of books? How do you keep your imagination fresh?
So I read a lot. I read from my fellow authors. I read international authors. Like I read Kiego Higashino. He's one of my favorite author. And there are different kind of stories, plots, arcs that are happening that I come across when I'm reading. Then I talk to my friends, and I talk to my author friends also, and I read their books. And they're friends from media whom I talk to, and we discuss, we brainstorm, and something I get a story in my head. It's like stuck there, and I have people whom I brainstorm with, And then if I feel that there is something, in the story, then I try to just take it ahead, work on it. So
So you have a bunch of, so do you write just one book at a time, or do you have multiple ideas and multiple storylines going at once? Because I have multiple
I
storylines at once.
yes, I have multiple storylines going, and I write two books at a time. So, but both are different genres when I write. When I feel that, in that mood when I should write something dark, I switch to the dark manuscript story where it is going on, something is going on. There are thrills and there are twists and turns. And when I feel that I should relax and, I have something going on which is very soft kind of a story, which eventually doesn't see the light, but I veer towards the crime thing, always, even in the soft story, I get crime and I get something dark in that story too. So,
Hmm. So it's just different genres. I know cozy mysteries are a thing here where you have a really sweet domestic life going and then there's some murder in the background and then everybody in the sweet little town has to solve the murder while they're baking cookies.
yeah, a lot of gore and violence. That is what I like. I love about. I mean, you should ask my friends; they know about it. My love for violence and gore.
Yeah, so I see that. And I also see that you write screenplays as well. You write for the screen as well as the book. So what is your process there? And was it hard or easy to switch back and forth?
Uh, uh, so screen if so when I got married and my husband was just would write screenplays then, and I picked up a few things from him, and I would sit on the meetings with the directors and the producers and the writers, and it seemed quite interesting, but then I didn't pay much attention to it. But then right now, like for the last 5 years, I have been I'm trying to experiment and trying to write screenplays. Uh, but screenplay basically it's a visual form of storytelling. So it doesn't give you more what do I say, freedom. It's time bound. But in books, you can write as much as you can. There could be paragraphs and paragraphs of describing things, because it's you want to create visual in the words that you write in the book. But on screen, you have your actors, you have tools, you have actors, you have dialogues to convey your story, to convey your the plot, convey the character, what the character is thinking. But while we do the book thing, it's like, we have to pay attention to the characters, what are they thinking and what are they saying. So it's the writer's job to really work on the characters graph for the writing, and for the books and for the screenplay, it's basically we leave it to the actors, but the dialogues and the visuals and everything has to be done. So that's a different thing.
Yeah, I would think it would be hard to show internal thoughts inside of a screenplay. If the characters are walking around doing things, how would you convey what they were thinking? I know that there are different types of visual effects for that, but it would be so different from a novel.
Yeah, it could be like a character. Maybe if we have a screenplay going, and we can always portray the character's deep inner thoughts through his emotions, through his acting. I think the actor leads the story ahead, while the
Well, certainly
character
if
leads
their
the story.
expressions and,
Yes,
their actions reveal what they might be thinking.
yes. And basically, you have the visual going on in the background, like what is happening around the actor. So we get cues from there too, like what is going to happen now. Yeah.
So do you prefer writing novels or writing for screenplays, or no preference, it's just different?
The process is different, but I prefer writing books, because books
Hmm.
is like I get a free hand. While screenplay, we have a lot of people dictating the process. Like there's a director, there's a producer, there's a channel. So somewhere the creative process ends, you know. But for the book, it's my thing, it's my world. I want to create the way I want to do it.
Yeah, I can see that it's just you. you are like directing your own movie, writing
Ye-
your own book in a way.
Yes, yes, yes. True.
Although I would love to see my writing adapted for screen. So yeah, I go back and forth myself.
Oh,
So I also noticed that you have written for a history TV channel where you are. So can you say more about that? And so what sort
Uh,
of history were you covering?
I didn't write anything as such. It was like an editing kind of a job, where I had to edit the scripts, and I had to translate it from English to Marathi. Marathi is a local regional language. It's my mother tongue, so it had to be translated into that language, and I had to edit uh, the s- the script. So I didn't write anything as such in that. It was but just a process where I got to see the match the visuals with the script that was there.
So yeah, that is interesting, and I can imagine translating would be a whole different thing because so
Yes.
much in a movie or a show was dependent on how the actors and actresses deliver lines, which starts with how the lines sound, if they're long or short, and the rhythm of that. And I can imagine it would be hard that the rhythm would be completely different in a completely different language.
Yes, it is. It is. But like I have translated blogs, I have translated articles, even political articles. The English language and what we write in Marathi, it changes the entire thing, you know. But we have to keep the emotions and the whatever the truth. We have to keep it right there. We have to retain that thing. We can't play around with a lot of words when I'm translating.
Okay, so when you're translating, if you have to make a choice between being absolutely accurate to the meaning or matching the emotion and the delivery, which one would you go with?
I would like if I'm matching the emotions, then I think I would add my two bits to it, which I don't want
Hmm.
to because it would be an injustice to the original writer. So, but then word to word translations also don't work, you know. Mm. But the only advantage I have is maybe the person is not able to understands only one language. Maybe he understands only English or he understands only Marathi. So that is the only advantage I have. But I wouldn't mess around with the original story or the writing. I would try to keep the original flavor as it is.
Okay, but I mean, would you go for technical accuracy of a word, or would you go for flow and rhythm?
Yes, I would go for the flow. I would go for the flow. I would try to retain the original concept, what the writer had in mind. I would not mess with it at all because even
Oh,
I'm a
okay,
writer.
yes.
Tomorrow, I don't want to be misrepresented in another language. You know,
Yes, that makes sense.
like
So,
I read Jhampalari's Here and Nowhere or some book she had written in Italian and then she translated it in English. So when we spoke to some people in from the Italian embassy, they said that it is lost in translation a lot. Like, so I feel that justice was not done to the translation then. You know, somewhere it's
hmm.
lost in translation. The story, the original writing is lost.
So what would you say are some really good translated works out there that you would recommend people read in English or Marathi or any other language?
What I'm reading right now is I'm reading Kiego Higashino. He's a Japanese writer.
Hmm.
So his books are available in English, and s- I think they are crime, they are mysteries. So I have read those translated works. So I feel that people should read Kiago if anyone is interested in a crime thriller, a really good crime thriller with a different plot, uh, different atmosphere. Like everything is really good. The arc is good. So
Okay, that's a wonderful recommendation. There's certainly, yeah, great books out there. So let's see. Another thing is that you have written for teenagers as part of your writing. So what sort of teen audience and teen magazine was that? Can you say more about that?
So there was this book called Best Friends Forever. It was written, I think, in 2012 or 13, and it was inspired by my nephew, who shifted to a boarding school, and where I would visit him often. And I really liked the setup he was in, and the friends around him. And I tried to write the book from his perspective. So I haven't written many teenage novels, but that was the first and the last that
Mm.
I wrote. And he was quite happy with it, because he said that, yeah, he did go through all those emotions that I have put in the book. Maybe they're fictional, of course, but there are some stories, some characters in that book which are real from his
Okay, so
school.
the story was inspired by your nephew, who was a
Ye-
teenager then. So you had a real
ye-
life teenager to draw upon. I was
Yes, yeah.
wondering how you thought that adults who were writing books could get into that teenage mindset, as certainly young adult is an incredibly popular genre.
Yes, yes. It's very difficult because I'm not a YA writer. I'm not an teenager. I don't write for teenagers, basically. So it was difficult for me, but then I had an inspiration to draw from. I had him. I tried to understand what he felt when he was in the boarding, and that's how the book came out. But after that, I did not try to write another teenage novel. I haven't tried. I
So you more prefer writing for adults. It comes more naturally.
Yes, it comes naturally. It's a familiar territory for me.
But how was it different to try to write from a teenage perspective, and how did teenagers respond to your book?
It was quite exciting, basically, because I was treading strange waters, and my nephew loved it, and so did his friends. And it went on to become quite popular among even not among the teenagers, but among the youths also. So it was appreciated a lot, that book, because it painted a completely different picture, and it had a international boarding school as its crux. The story happened there. So the relationships, the growing up years, and falling in love, heartbreaks, and then coming back again, and then finding themselves when they grew up, and so the story had come a full circle in that book. And I feel it's very special to me because, of course, I drew inspiration from my nephew, and I feel that boarding school kids live a very tough life. They tough
Mm.
it out there, you know.
Yeah, I would think so because I have a nephew who is starting school. He's 7, and so he's in second grade, and we don't do boarding school over here, but it's
Yeah.
just a whole, you know, starting school is just such a huge change and a pivotal experience in your life. And so I'm imagining being sent away to boarding school would only amplify that by so many degrees.
Yes, absolutely. It's very lonely sometimes, and it's like you have to fend for yourself. You don't have anyone having your back, like you have to be there for yourself, like do everything on your own. They become super independent, basically.
Yeah, so I can see that that sort of inspires a lot of hero or heroine's journey kind of quests with young people.
Yes, they do. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. So would you say that your own childhood, I know you mentioned your experience with your father telling stories. Would you say it was writing a childhood dream of yours? Would you say that your childhood prepared you to be a writer and a screenwriter?
Yeah, I would say that basically it's in my genes also. And I love to basically I'm a very introvert kind of a person. I will I always observe when in groups, and I love to listen to people around me, and try to pick up on something very interesting anecdote or from their life. And I feel like I get inspired by all these things, and I listen, I read, and I observe, and I think that's what sets me apart, and that's what makes me an author. I mean, I love to write. That's it. Like since childhood, I have been like this. I would write diaries. I would keep diaries. I would read. The first chance I would get, I would go to the library and pick up books and just read, borrow books from friends. So I think that childhood as, and we didn't have mobiles back then. We didn't have television so much, and so reading was the only thing. Books were the only options. Like in summer, we would just sit around, all cousins, all friends. We would sit together and we would read. So I feel somewhere that that influenced me to write, to become an author. Like you don't choose your profession as an author. I think you are an author. You are a writer. You are born a writer, basically.
Yes, I have heard from many writers that just whether they're paid or not, whatever they're doing, even if they have another job, that they write because that's what they do. They just can't bear to stop writing.
Yeah, true. That's true. And that is true.
But is there anything else in your life that you are as passionate about writing? I mean, do you as passionate as you are about writing? And do you have like social causes or interests or other passions?
Yeah. So basically, I love to listen to languages, different languages. I have started I'm learning Japanese, basically, just the basic level, but I didn't give any exams just because I have a fear of failing. So I don't want to give an exam. So I'm just learning, brushing my skills. So I love to watch a lot of international shows and try to pick up on words. Maybe like it's very interesting. Then yeah, I love cats. I feed cats, stray cats. I love to take care of them.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're a cat lady.
Yes, I'm a cat lady and yeah.
Yes, that is very sweet. There's something about being a writer and having a cat, that the cat will keep you company, but then the cat will not demand all of your attention away from your
Oh,
writing.
yeah, yeah, that's true, that's true. My cat
I think
keeps
cats make good
away
pets
from-
for
Yeah,
writers.
they good. Yeah, they make good pets, right? They keep to themselves. They don't bother you.
Hmm. So that's good. So another part of what I do is that I volunteer for PEN America, and so I'm part of a campaign against the banning of books, where different books are being challenged that people think they are not appropriate for kids or teenagers if they deal with difficult topics. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm doing some administrative and research work behind the scenes for the international organization. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I have always been a fan of just getting all of the topics out there and then being able to have a rational and calm discussion on them rather than simply avoiding the book or avoiding the topic. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I was wondering if you could speak to that, if books or ideas are challenged over there where you are, if you or anybody you know has ever experienced any of that.
Mm. Nah, I haven't come across anyone who has experienced this. I mean, basically, you're saying that books are banned because of their content. That is what you're saying, trying to say here.
Sometimes over where I am, I mean,
Uh-huh.
not so much in California, but in other places that people think certain books or, certain topics are not appropriate for teenagers or kids. And I understand age appropriateness. That's why we have, teachers and children's
Mm-hmm.
librarians and why parents are selecting books for their kids. But it's just I think that what authors can do is really take what is in our subconscious as a society and then pull it out and then say, okay, this is something that is here. We're going to need to face it. And I would rather that people who have put in the time and thought to be authors and to think about all the different ramifications of the topic be leading a conversation on this rather than have it, be repressed and talked about by who knows who in some other kind of way that might be less empathetic and less reasoned.
But I think every writer is following his passion, doing what he feels, writing what he feels is right. But what is age appropriate, what is depends on the person who is reading it. Basically. If the books are not made available to the kids in the school library, there's an age limit, or the books that are kind of kept there, the different genres that are being available to the kids. So the teachers and the parents also decide which book they should read or not. But after a certain age, I don't think you can stop a child from reading what they want to read. Of course, their curiosity builds up. Like if you want to stop a child from reading this book, certainly they will do whatever they can, in their power, and they will gain access to that book, and they will read it finally. So I,
Yes, and it becomes that forbidden fruit thing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And as a writer, I can't decide. I don't have the right to decide what I'm writing, because it will be unfair, on my part, to write only what is. So if I'm a children's writer, I will write for children. But if I'm writing for adults, I will write for adults. So if I'm writing for teenagers, I'll write for teenagers. So I feel we have all selected our own age groups to write. I mean, every writer has that thing in his head. We can't decide for who, like we can decide for whom to write. I think that is what you're trying to ask, right?
Yes, and it's kind of like, you follow your story, but then kind of, I think after you're writing or as you write, you sort of think about who the audience is,
Yeah, like
and it comes to you or it comes
yes.
to me when I'm writing.
Yes, yes, yes. So there's this book which is not come yet. It is this manuscript is with a with an agent, literary agent. So it's kind of a bold book. It talks about women's right. It talks about women's desires. Not only women but men also, and the topic which is thought of not discussed openly. And I think that book, I had second thoughts about. I mean, I had second thoughts about getting it out there, because I don't know how people are going to react to it. After writing psychological thrillers and crimes and romance, I'm suddenly gravitated to writing this bold story about four women and their search for fulfilling their desires. So,
Hmm.
so I had given it to an editor. I think she's there. Sakshi Nair is here online, and she just came up with a feedback saying that you have to have a target readership for this. Like it's for 30 plus or it's for 20 plus. So I feel my book is for 30 plus readers, but I don't know who will pick it up. Maybe a 20-year-old will pick it up, because I don't have any control on that, but for me, that book is meant for adults.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can see that. And I think it comes to you as you write, because that's another question. Because in book marketing, which I do, people say, oh, know your audience and write a story that will sell to a hot market and a target audience. And think, oh, okay, people are really interested in purple sparkly vampires now. So I've got to put some purple sparkly vampires in the novel, and it's for this market, and a lot of them live over here. And I understand that from a marketing and sales and customer service perspective. But how do you balance that, all of the audience-centric marketing with being an author and then following your story wherever the story leads? And, really, as Madeline Longle said, serving the story and writing the story that needs to be told.
I feel we authors are influenced by what is happening around them, or what the trend is. Like we are quick to pick up on it, like uh, so I feel, but the thing is that by the time you finish writing your book, that trend has already passed, and you are in a place where there's a new trend. But that doesn't mean your readers are not going to read your book. They are going to read your book. So trends will just would influence my writing. They would motivate me to write. Maybe I would cash on it. Like I would get an idea from it. Maybe it's a vampire thing happening around, and like I get a inspiration from that theme, and I write a book on that. But it doesn't mean that after 2 years down the line, because it takes a lot of time to get the book out there and get it published and find a publisher, editor, and everything. Like by the time the copy comes into your hands, it's more than a year. So that trend has already died down, but the interest has not died. So people are always going to read what you put out there. So I feel as a writer, I don't have to be influenced. I don't have to be. I can be influenced by the trend, but I don't have to be scared that my book will be not read, or my story will be like, kind of a thing that is in the past. No, because we always bring our personal thing touch to the stories that we write.
Yes, and I think that, good writing is always important in, whatever. And if you can have, fully fledged characters and an intricate, internally consistent world and, a plot that makes sense and themes that comment on something in humanity or in society, then you can, that does a whole lot for a book. Unfortunately, there are a lot of great books that fall by the wayside, but I certainly think the books that last have those strong elements of craft as well as enduring themes, regardless of the genre or regardless of what trends they engage with or don't.
I agree with you, Christina. The thing is that when even if you want to write a time-bound book or a time-bound story, maybe you can refer always have real incidents during that time that has happened, and you can have your story run parallel to it. Like, so people understand that the story is set in maybe in 90s, or when this incident happened. Like, I'm reading a book where this butter, which is set in Japan, and it was after the Second World War, that there was a shortage of butter then. So immediately I knew where the story was set and what time the story was set. So
Yeah, because that's interesting too, because I am in my 40s, and so now I will read books from the 90s and I will see things that I remember.
yeah,
People will talk about, or the 2000s, they'll talk about the fall of the Twin Towers, or they'll talk about, the war in Iraq or various other things, or music from the 90s. And it's interesting to me to see how, I certainly had a certain type of experience growing up and certain types of memories of those things happening, as well as what was in my personal life. But I think it's interesting now to read books and be able to reflect on what was actually going on in the world and what things
yes.
meant and how different kinds of people from different backgrounds would have interpreted those events differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as a writer, I think that brings a lot of flavor of that time, that era into the story. So we get to connect the dots. Maybe children who are like people who are born in 2000, they get to read what happened in 90s or in 80s. So we bridge the gap. We bridge the generation gap.
Yeah, so now finding that the 90s when I was a teenager is now being, is now considered history. And so I'm reading novels
Yeah.
set back in the 90s. Interesting experience. I feel old now.
Like, how was the world without mobiles? We just had landlines.
It was different. It was kind of
Yeah.
annoying. You couldn't have GPS when you were trying to get somewhere,
But
so you
we
got
we didn't
lost.
even know that the GPS existed. I mean, what was GPS? We didn't even know the word GPS. We didn't even know the term, right? So it
And you
was
couldn't tell somebody that you were running late. You couldn't text somebody. And
yes,
so you would just show up 20 minutes late and hope the person was still there waiting for you. And if they left, they couldn't tell you that they were leaving until they got home. And then they would leave a message on your phone, but then you'd have
phone.
to go all the way home.
Right, right. So we navigated a lot of challenges, I think, growing up in the 80s and 90s without a cell phone, but I feel that world was better than today.
Yes, and I remember film cameras and having to go and have film developed and deciding whether I wanted to buy enough film for 12 pictures or 24 pictures.
Right,
And then
right.
going and trying to be really careful with how many pictures I took because I was going to have to go and buy some more film.
But and develop them later on.
Yes, I remember that. And I remember encyclopedias. I remember writing reports for school based on looking things up in the encyclopedia before we had the internet.
That's how we developed the habit of reading and going to the libraries were meant for that, for reference work. I've spent my hours my college days in library, where I picked up reference books and used them for my studies. Nowadays the kids would just Google and find everything there. It's right there at the fingertips, but not then. So,
Yes, because I remember each and every week in sixth grade going down and checking out in biology, we had to write a report on a different animal from a different um, Yeah, like a different genus every week. Would write about mollusks and arthropods and insects, and we had to pick an animal and write a report. So I would go to the library once a week and get my animal book about, whichever one I picked, and then I would do like a 2-page report on jellyfish or starfish.
Yeah, but it was quite fun doing that. It was challenging. It like we had our limits, but it was fun doing it. I think that is how we have developed our habit of reading and going back to the news. I love doing it. Like even today, I
Yes, that
don't
is a
mind
good thing. If
picking a
people
book.
had a
Yeah.
ritual of visiting their libraries once a week, I think that would do our
Yes,
communities a
yes,
lot of good.
absolutely. Once a week, every Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, we would go to the library, Saturday or Sundays. We would bring books and then we read them through the week and return them again and wait for a Saturday to come so that we can go to the library and get another book. In school also, we had a day where we had a library period and we would just, and there were not enough books then. There were so many of us and very little books.
Yeah, that is too bad. But yeah, because we're really trying to raise awareness of libraries around the world because people think that. People think, oh, information is available online and, people are reading books on their Kindle. People say, do people go in the library anymore? Well, not everybody has the financial resources to buy books from a bookstore, the newer books. And so libraries are a resource, but also just that they offer so much more to a community even than books. You think about community gathering spaces and maker spaces and, English language tutoring. I'm sure tutoring in various other languages and sometimes homework assistance and referral to community services and cultural programming. We have author talks at our library. So, there's just so much that a library adds to the community.
So now I think here libraries have shut down. The local libraries, there are hardly any libraries in cities, and basically the libraries have taken place. Now there are bookstores now, basically where authors meet, where the books are launched, and all the activities are going on now. Now we don't
Yeah.
have libraries anymore, and it's very sad that the visit going to the library, that ritual has completely vanished now.
So that's too bad. Why do you think that is? Because here in California, libraries are still exist and are strong, but they're pivoting to be able to offer more book talks and cultural events and programs that you can go and hear mariachi dancers perform at the library, or they'll have
So
a K-pop
all these
festival.
programs happen here in the bookstores, basically.
Mm.
And there are programs that are organized by school for children. They have an author come and talk to them, interact with them, talk to them about the books, and that cultural exchange thing is happening here in schools and at small levels. But the libraries, there are hardly any libraries now. I think the library that I visited when I was a child, I think that too has shut down
Oh,
because
well, that's too bad. Why do you think that is? Because
because people
people are
don't
just
yeah, people don't need to borrow books when they can buy books now. There are books available to them now. Then the buying books was a luxury for us, and today all kinds of books, magazines are available for sale. So people think that why should I return it? Like I can keep it or I can pass it on to someone, share it with someone.
Well, that's a good thing for the authors in a way, making, more book sales and more
Yeah.
money. So I'm always glad to see people support authors. But I think libraries are a wonderful community resource for people to be able to learn about books. If they were not going to buy the book, then maybe they can go in and they can borrow a book and read it. And then they're like, wow, this is an amazing book. I would like to own it. And I would like to have copies to pass on to family and friends. And then they go and buy the book.
Well, that is not happening anymore. I don't think so. It's happening anymore. I think we just go to book fairs and we pick books what we want, or we go to a friend's house and if we like something, we just borrow it from them. So I think we depend more on that now, like on our friends, on book fairs, on book launches, or somewhere like this is KDP we have online. So I think we have a lot of options today. No one wants to go
Okay,
into
well,
the
that's good to know
libraries.
that books are available to people and that people are interested in books and that they're willing to invest in them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Books, like people of all age groups, like even kids, even if there's a bookstore in the shopping mall, we find we have kids going there, picking a book, what they want, their choice. So I think it's availability now, basically.
Yeah, so that is a very good thing, and I'm certainly
And there's
for
also
supporting
a
the business
mobile
of bookselling and the
library.
authors.
Sorry, there's also a mobile library kind of a concept here. So sometimes we have this a van or a kind of a thing where the books are being taken around, and we can borrow the books from them. And then there is an online service where you have rare books, which we can borrow and return to them after a month. So a book is delivered to your doorstep. So that is something new that is like I have experienced it. Like, we wanted a book which we did not like, which was not anywhere, which was not in any bookstore. And this particular online library, they had the book and we borrowed it from them. So the book was with us for a month. We read, we made a photocopy of the book and we returned it. I mean, it was a home service, doorstep service. The person came and they took it back.
Oh, well, that is certainly a wonderful service. I love the idea of being able to find books, new and unique and esoteric, or hard to find books that you really want to read. And certainly the delivery makes it very convenient, although I would think that it would take away the community gathering aspect of being able to meet in the library and get to know
Yes.
your neighbors and perhaps be in a book club with them. We have a couple of book clubs meeting at our local library.
Okay. So we have book clubs. We have this book club. I'm a member of the Italian Embassy book club. Then there are book clubs by the Himalayan Writing Retreat, and where we authors like we gather, but it's an online thing. It's not in person. But Italian book clubs, yeah, it's in person. We go to this bookstore where a month we are given a book and we are asked to read, and then we discuss about the book. But it's only for the Italian authors or not Indian authors, because they want to introduce Italian authors to us. That's how
Oh,
it.
okay. Yeah, that's something I find in book clubs that you can have a focus on a
Yes,
particular thing, and then you can really find people who share that interest.
yes, yes, absolutely.
So that's a good thing. It was very wonderful to be able to talk with you today and to learn all about, yes, all of your different writing interests and about the state of, books and libraries and about screenplays and, writing for different age groups and just your whole experience, everything. So is there something we haven't talked about that you would like to add?
Mm, no, I think you've covered everything, um, Christina. I think that's it.
Oh,
Only thing is,
okay.
I
Well,
would like to share that. So there's this genre uh, which I'm finding a bit challenging to write, but I'm going to write on it. It's horror. So I've written a screenplay about it, about a horror story, and I would like to write a book. And I'm just going to challenge myself to come up with a horror story.
oh, that's wonderful. Yes, I was going to ask about your next steps, what you're working on now.
Yeah, so that is what I'm working on. Like, I would really like to challenge myself to write a compelling horror story. So fingers crossed.
Yes, that is wonderful. So yeah, so it was fascinating to hear about you and about your life and your inspirations. And yeah, I thank you for talking with me today, and I wish you all the best. And thank you very much to the audience for joining us on this interview with Supriya Parulekar.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful